Okay.
Do we even have it on?
I don't know, but help her eat something.
No, I can't.
Oops, am I live? I'm live. Oops, I didn't realize I was live. So, this is when you work from home. All right, so I get distracted. And all right, guys. Hey, so what we're going to talk about here is is probably going to make this a podcast also. But I had posted something. If you can see my screen on my Facebook page, so I guess I subscribe to stuff. So I really like Tom Sowell and Walter Williams are my two favorite economists, and uh, they're both treasures. They're both. I think he just turned 90, and uh, Thomas Sowell and sharp as ever, and Walter Williams is in his 80s. I like him. He's from Philly and taught at Temple. He played basketball for Ben Franklin. And so I've got to feel I'm trying to get him on the show, but I got a feeling he knows my cousin slash uncle who passed away last year, unfortunately, but who was, that whole Sonny Hill, Don Chaney era. He was Wilt Chamberlain. He was one of the top ball players in Philly. And so I'm wondering if, and in Philly is such a small town, if you're a ball player, each other, But anyway, that's not what this conversation's about. What I did was I posted this Thomas Sowell thing. The first lesson of economics is scarcity, and there is never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. So I don't care if you had $1 billion, so you can always spend it. There's always more stuff to your heart's desire than you'll have money. And the first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. And so I had a few amens, from my fellow Austrian, business-minded people. And then I had a couple. Actually, I had one dissenter, but it was interesting. But I like discussion, so I don't attack people. I was trying to understand their point of view, but there is a really skewed lesson on economics, and so this, a lot of people say, well, I understand economics, but what you're taught in school is mainstream economics is based on the theory, which is untrue, by the way, that demand or consumption drives the economy. Consumption or gross GNP, gross national product drives the economy, but that is the caboose. See, you have to save. We talked about in an earlier video last week, the 5 things you can do with savings. See, you have to save, you've got to underconsume, you've got to produce. And so before there's consumption, there's got to be production, and so many people are they don't even realize it, I think, but socialist in their thinking. And Margaret Thatcher said, and when she took over as Prime Minister of England, when they were deep into the worker socialist party, she says the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money to spend, because that's really what it is. And so politicians, Thomas Sowell said this also, they come around and see they have 2 problems. They want to get elected and they want to get reelected. So they just basically put their hand up to their thumb up to the wind, and okay, what's popular opinion says, okay, well, I'm going to lean into that. See, so I don't really have any respect for somebody like that. You got to have principles that are unchanging, and about economics, about your life. And I have a belief system in my clients, or if I'm teaching a class or if I'm teaching youth, you've got to have you can't have situational ethics or with foundation. I have people calling me up with this money scheme or that money scheme, and I'll say stuff like, well, I can't do that, that violates my money rules. They're like, what are you talking about? Well, I have a philosophy about money, and from studying rich people. Okay. And so one of the things that and so in the discussion, it was like, well, what about his discourse was that I don't have it in front of me. So if I misquote, if you see this, I apologize. So it was basically, what about, scarcity or the demand? Basically, it's variations of what about, people that are outside of the economic one. With basically what was drawing this lesson is the 1%. So what about the 1%? And I said I agree that there's a big gap in the 1% and everybody else. But see, the big lie is that there is some conspiracy. I tell you back, but see, people don't really understand why there's a big gap. The gap is, so if you ever read, here's a recommendation, you got to read The Creature from Jekyll Island, okay, which is a story of the Federal Reserve. See, so it is not a failure of capitalism is why, or people doing thing wrong or greed and all this other bullshit people talk about. It is that we have our money is the root of the problem. So because we have an elastic currency, they print money. So when you see all this stimulus and the government's fighting to give money away, that's inflate. People talk about, oh, there's no inflation. Inflation, see, people change the definitions. Inflation means an expansion in the money supply. So if you print new money, you debase or devalue the money that's already in circulation. So when you see these $600 checks and, oh, they don't care about people, let's just print money, you're hurting those people because the friends and the well-connected get that money first. So they get to get it, spend it before the inflation gets into the system. And so what you're seeing as inflation, rising prices, is really the result of monetary inflation. And when you have a lot of dollars chasing the same good, the price goes up. So increasing prices is a result of inflation. And so what happens is you're going to see it. You see it already. You see it in the stock market, asset bubbles that are being created, in real estate bubbles. So, one of the things that we talk about in Prosperity Economics is you have to think, you have to understand what's going on so that you know how to, one, you've got to play defense and protect yourself. You've got to have principles. And then two, you've got to recognize the opportunity that presents. Okay. And you can't just, go to work. So one of the things that we talked about in the thread on my, this is on my personal news feed, was that I think we would disagree. I agree that there's a 1% and 99%, but why I think we would disagree on. Okay. And so, because see, people talk about the money gap. So this is, I'm going to read from a newsletter. This will definitely be a podcast. But if you're listening to this audio, then know that I'm going to put this on YouTube so you can see this. But what I'm drawing is there's a pyramid, right? This is the Dan Kennedy, I think it's the wealth pyramid, right? And so when you look at the 1%, and I'm going to read our article also as I go through this, but so let me tell you a story first. So this is from a newsletter, and see, because here's the thing. So as I look at this, there's only 1% of the population at large, but also in any field. So if you're a doctor, if you're, there's professional athletes, there's people in my industry, the financial industry, there's actors. Most actors are broke. Okay, there's only like 1% that are like this, making what's this guy's name, Iron Man type money, and and so there's only 1% rise to the top in any field. So that's just how it is, right? And so what the thing is, people think that's some nefarious thing going on, but it's really, if you read stuff like, this is why I don't let people get away with excuses when they, oh, this is such and such, or I can't win because I'm Black, or I'm a woman, or I'm whatever. That's, you can't, and I don't let my kids, I don't let anybody fall into that, because, if you say that takes control. That means you can't affect that, and my parents never raised me that way. They said, look, you can do whatever you want to do. Okay. So I've heard that forever. And so that's what I believe. Okay, that's part of my belief system. You know, my father told me you never make any money work for somebody else. Okay, so I never got that go to school, get a good job taught. So I thought that you majored in business when I was in school to be in business. It never occurred to me to get a job, right? But my grandfather was self-employed, his father was self-employed, my father was self-employed. So and I say that not to brag, I just say that to, I've been brought up with a certain perspective. So I'm sharing that. I want to share it with young people because, you know, security doesn't lie in employment, because you can get fired for one of two reasons, any reason or no reason at all. Security is the ability to produce. Okay. And so what happens is, to the 99%, so I'm reading from this article, this is the people of the 1% who get rich. It's a mysterious thing, and which can only be explained by mystical forces like luck, evil, thievery, conspiracies, injustice. Okay. And to the 1%, the mystery is why some of the 99% don't emulate the 1%ers behavior. Okay. And join them. And so what happens is, see, what I like to talk to people about and my clients about is what I call the behavior gap. See, there's a money gap, yes, okay, but there's also a behavior gap, okay. And so you're talking to somebody that teaches. I put my money where my mouth is. So I mean, I've taught financial literacy classes to homeless, to kids, to whatever. And the main thing, one time I taught this class. And I don't go in like this, but the first thing I said to them, I said, listen, wherever you're the CEO of your life. So wherever you are or you aren't, it wasn't the first thing, but it was definitely in the first 15 minutes. And I said, wherever you are or are not in your life, it's your fault. Okay. And if you can't accept that, you can't win. Right. So no offense. I said, listen, so Curtis is not a social worker. So if you want, because I'm going to tell you how it is, I'll get one of these little white girls to come back, social workers to come back and teach your financial course and, you know, tell you what a victim you are. But if you want me to teach it, I am not going to blow smoke up your butt. So do you want me to blow smoke up your butt? Or you want me to tell you the truth? No, man, you know, we need to hear that. Tell us like it is. But now, before that, I was from that area. I grew up around the corner from there. You know, my family had two businesses, a bar up the street and a supermarket, you know, so I'm there. I mean, I grew up a little bit differently, but I know these people, you know, and so I'm not coming down from like Mount Olympus, like, you know, it's not all bright lights and glamour. So, you know, but I says, listen, you know, this is from my experience in just studying people. And so we're going to talk about that. So this was in an article, and I just looked this up and read this myself. He talks about, this is Dan Kennedy, a recent article about Judd Apatow, right? And so who wrote like the 40-year-old version, real, you know, he was a comedian, he's a big TV producer, writer, and he says he studied television shows. And I'm going to show you a pattern of a few things like this, because if you look at The Millionaire Mind, if you look at Think and Grow Rich, if you look at Success Secrets of Black Millionaires, what you're going to see is, in like Dennis Kimbro's book, the traits of African-American millionaires. They all start out broke, okay? And so he says, listen, he says he studied television shows he liked, like The Twilight Zone, Saturday Night Live, and he transcribed them word for word in composition books. See, if you start to do that, you work on your skill set, and you start to see patterns of storytelling, of this and that, okay? And so what happens is, most people who read stuff like that, and I look for this when I read articles, is the work. I like to see the work. See, I read a book, I remember when I was in middle school, about George Gervin. George Gervin shot over 600 shots a day. I was like, that's a clue. And what did Curtis start doing? Curtis would do, shout out Don Griffin, who's a successful chiropractor here in Philly, but Donnie was played for Coatesville Red Raiders, and he was all state, and so he had moved and lived next door to us. So every morning for a couple of summers, at least 3 to 4 or 5 days a week, we'd play full court 1-on-1, and then we would shoot with different drills, 400 or 500 shots a day. So people say, "Oh, Curtis, you can shoot." I used to be able to shoot. This is, back in the olden days. Pretty good. Like if I was squared up, the ball is going in. I need to follow my shot because I've taken that. Just like watching Kobe, Black Mamba. I have that book. You have to do the work. If you can take the last shot, because he shot that shot 1,000 times, so he's very confident that he's going to go in, and that's what I loved about him. And I like people, because if you've been, I'm not going to name any names, but if you've been in the NBA 3 years and you can't shoot, that means you're not working on your game. All right, and I'm not going to go there because I'm thinking about somebody that's pissing me off. So what happens is people look at those lessons and they shrug it off as incidental. They don't say, there's a clue, or about all that kind of stuff. And so what I like to see, and when I'm coaching kids, I say, listen, you got to have the will to prepare to win. Okay, everybody wants to win. Or if my daughter didn't perform well on a track meet on Saturday, I said, listen, you don't win on Saturday. You win Monday through Friday while you're working on your sprints, working on your starts, all that kind of stuff. And so that's where you win at. And so in life, in business, that is what you have to do. Okay. And so so what I want to talk, let's talk about the behavior gap. So what happens is when you look at that, 1% are rich, 4% are prosperous, 15% make a good living. All right. And what happens is 60% struggle financially endlessly. So this is 80%. So there's always the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule in effect. And so which are these groups of, and I'm talking about business owners, but it's anybody, should you pay closest attention to or emulate? Okay. Which groups thinking, business practice, and behavior should you avoid like the plague? So I avoid the bottom 80. So my philosophy is the majority is usually wrong. So one of the things that we talk about in the financial world, that 98% of all financial advice that's given is bad for you, okay? Because it's literally the complete opposite of what rich people do. So when they tell you buy and hold, dollar cost average, get out of debt, invest for a long haul, build a retirement nest egg, tax-free retirement, these are the companies selling you an idea so they can charge you fees for your life. And so it will get you to a point, but it's real difficult to become financially independent that way. But if you study this top half of people, they literally do completely different. And most of it has nothing to do with investments. It has everything to do with what they invest in, which is themselves. Okay. And that's critical. And see, so there's things that go on, so there's a big theory about the 1%, 99%, the theory to produce the war on poverty with LBJ, okay? A colossal failure, okay? And it's having, all it does is produce more bureaucracy, more, now you got more pensions, and, it's this whole idea that government should take care of us is really permeating society. And, there's a big theory that the 1%, 90% cast is facts as injustice that needs to be cured by imposition of unnatural forces, okay? And yet that's never worked. Socialism has never worked in the history of mankind, okay? And so what you need is more freedom. There is a quote by Dr. Adrian Rogers says that you cannot legislate the poor into freedom by legislating the wealthy out of money, And so what one person receives without working for, another person must work for without receiving, okay? The government cannot give to anybody anything the government does not first take from someone else. And so when half the people get the idea that they do not have to work because the other half is going to take care of them, That's a problem, right? And so when the other half gets the idea it does no good to work because somebody else is going to get what they work for, that's the end of our nation. Okay, because you can't multiply wealth by dividing it. It must be created. It doesn't need to be redistributed. You just need freedom to be able to go for it. So, I challenge people to look, if out of this, the top 20%, out of the top 20%, so those of you who are listening to this, when we do the Shift the podcast, 1% are rich, 4% are prosperous, 15% make a good living. So that's in general, but that's also by industry. So if you are looking at this, and if you're in retail, or if you're in sales or real estate sales, 80% of most realtors are broke as hell. Okay. 15% make a good living, 4% are prosperous, 1% is rich. But why are they rich? So if I talk to people in industries, and if they're not making money, if I do analysis, mostly they're bad at marketing, they don't know how to sell, they feel guilty about money, and money is evil. Well, money goes to where it's appreciated. So if you think that you're doing something wrong, well, you can't win because you're incongruent, right, with your philosophy. Oh, money's evil. Well, okay, I don't like sales because I don't like talking to people. Well, sales is helping people make a future decision that is good for them. Thank you, Dan Sullivan. And that helps me. So if you've got a good service, you want to share it with people. And then by creating value in the marketplace, always remember, money follows value. Okay. And so what you've got to do, success leaves clues. And you got to ask yourself when you are looking at people. I had another post. Someone was talking about, Jeff Bezos or so-and-so doesn't pay any taxes. Okay. My thought is, well, how do they do that? Not, oh, that's wrong, because the tax code is a stimulus program. So what does the government want you to do? Okay. And here's what they want you to do. They want you to provide jobs. They want you to provide housing. They want you to provide food. And they want you to provide energy. So they're incenting people to do those things with their money, and they'll give you tax breaks. So if you'll begin to understand that, then you'll reorder your life differently, and then you can win. So the thing is, it's hard to win a game you don't know the rules. So you don't need to change the system, because that's hard. Okay, I can change Curtis, and Curtis can understand the rules of the game. And, with our clients, I try to help them understand the rules of the game, because, again, security is the ability to produce. So the question is, it goes back to, as I end this, which of these groups do you want to pay attention to? I pay attention to the top 20%. All right. And, my mission in life is to move people from, there's always people who's going to be broke. So the Bible says the poor will always be among us. So you've got to do, and I don't think that comes from government. If you're concerned, then how much money do you donate to charity? I remember, no, I'm not going to go there. I'll do that on another. I was thinking about some debate when Romney was running, and they were going over his finances, and I don't know if I'll say it. So they were going over his finances, and Biden gave less than 1% of his money to charity, and Romney, and I'm not, I'm just saying, just when you look at but he has a philosophy. So he's Mormon, they believe in giving, that kind of stuff. But he gave 15% of his money to charity, and he made a lot of money. So, if you feel that you want to give, there's certain people want to use government to give, but they won't use their own money. Whereas wealthy people are very generous. So what happens is, the question is, money's not evil. How much money can you make and give away? How many families or charities that are important to you can you support? So money just makes you more of what you already are. Okay. And it's just green paper you exchange for goods and services. So hopefully this little rant will help somebody. All right. And so go out there, make it a prosperous day, and figure out which game do you want to play. I would study the top 20%, and things like The Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker, Rich Dad Poor Dad really hits you. It doesn't see Rich Dad Poor Dad. People will read it. If you haven't, you got to start there, guys. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Well, wealthy people teach their kids that the poor and middle class don't. But the challenge when you read it is it's not very tactical. Like, he's not telling you what to do. It's more strategic and more about the philosophy. But for me, it opened me up to, okay, the tactics I was learning and teaching earlier in my career about term investor difference, get a diversified portfolio of mutual funds. I started to realize that rich people didn't do that. Even the founder of the company I was with, who was financially independent, he didn't do that. He built a business, he sold it for $100 million, and that's why he's rich. He didn't get rich because he was putting money in mutual funds. And see, so a lot of people don't see the forest through the trees, and you got to just wake up and begin to look at what's around you. And it's like once I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I started to understand financial statements. If you ever watched the end of The Matrix, and where Neo could see the Matrix, that's how I was. That's how I am now. As you start studying economics, you can see the Matrix going all around you, and or you can be caught up with bread and circuses. Okay, watch Gladiator. And so anyway, go have a great day, everybody. Sorry for this long rant. Hopefully this helps somebody.